The first gunshot shattered the fog. Savannah hit the wet concrete instinctively as bullets ripped through the shipping containers above them. Sparks exploded from steel. Men shouted across the dock. "Move!" Eli roared. He grabbed Savannah's arm and dragged her behind a rusted forklift as automatic gunfire thundered through Pier 19. The entire dock erupted into chaos. Gabriel Vale stood near the black sedan completely unmoved while his men spread across the pier like wolves closing in on prey. And through all the screaming metal and gunfire, Vale smiled. Eli peeked around the forklift and fired twice. One attacker spun backward into the harbor. Another ducked behind cargo crates. Savannah's breathing turned ragged. "This was a trap," she shouted. "No kidding." Bullets hammered the forklift. Metal screamed. Eli grabbed Savannah again. "We're pinned." A spotlight suddenly exploded across the dock. White light flooded the fog. Then came engines. Heavy engines. 3 armored trucks burst through the front security gates of Pier 19, smashing the barriers apart. Every gunman froze. Black SUVs screeched sideways. Men shouted in confusion. Then the truck doors opened. Armed tactical units flooded the dock. Not police. Private military. Disciplined. Fast. Efficient. Richard Clarke stepped out from the lead vehicle wearing a long black coat while rain poured around him. Savannah stared in disbelief. Her father held a rifle. "What the hell?" she yelled. Richard fired twice toward Vale's men before answering. "I brought insurance." The dock erupted into full war. Tactical teams exchanged gunfire with Vale's mercenaries across the containers. Bullets sparked everywhere. Men dropped into freezing harbor water. Cranes groaned overhead while alarms screamed through the fog. Gabriel Vale calmly watched the battlefield. Then his eyes landed on Eli. And the smile vanished. "Interesting," Vale murmured softly. Eli stepped from cover. "You should have stayed buried." Vale tilted his head slightly. "You disappeared without permission, Eli." "Best decision I ever made." "Was it?" Vale asked. "Because everyone you love keeps ending up in danger." Savannah saw Eli's jaw tighten instantly. Vale noticed too. And smiled again. "You always were emotional beneath the anger." Then Vale raised one hand. Snipers opened fire from the crane towers above. The tactical teams got shredded instantly. Glass exploded. Men collapsed. Richard Clarke barely dove behind an armored truck in time. "Snipers," someone screamed. The battle shifted immediately. Vale's forces gained control again. Savannah grabbed Eli. "We need to leave." But Eli wasn't looking at the battlefield anymore. He was staring toward the cargo ship docked beside Pier 19. Massive. Black. Silent. No shipping logo. No visible crew. And dozens of armed men guarded the loading ramp. "What is that?" Savannah whispered. Eli's face darkened. "That's not a shipment." "Then what is it?" Before Eli could answer, the cargo doors on the ship slowly opened. Savannah's stomach dropped. Inside weren't weapons. Inside were people. Dozens of them. Men. Women. Teenagers. Terrified. Locked inside steel cages. Her blood ran cold. Human trafficking. The realization hit her like a punch. All this time, the weapons were only part of the operation. Gabriel Vale wasn't building a criminal empire. He was selling people. Savannah stared in horror. "Oh my God." Eli looked furious enough to kill. "I'm ending this tonight." Before Savannah could stop him, Eli charged into the gunfire. Eli. He moved like a man possessed. Fast. Violent. Precise. One mercenary rushed him. Eli slammed a pipe into the man's throat. Another raised a rifle. Eli grabbed the weapon mid-motion and smashed the stock into the attacker's face. Blood sprayed across the rain. Savannah ran after him while bullets tore through the fog around them. Richard's men pushed forward again, using the armored trucks as cover. The dock became a nightmare of screaming metal, gunfire, and smoke. And through all of it, Gabriel Vale simply walked calmly toward the cargo ship. Like he already knew he would win. Savannah reached the loading ramp just as Eli fought two mercenaries simultaneously. One swung a knife. Eli blocked it with his forearm, punched the attacker across the jaw, then hurled him over the dock railing into the freezing water below. The second man tackled Eli against cargo crates. Savannah grabbed a loose chain from the ground and swung it desperately. The chain cracked across the attacker's back. He turned toward her furiously. Too late. Eli slammed the man headfirst into the steel ramp. The mercenary collapsed unconscious. Eli grabbed Savannah. "You shouldn't be here. And let you play action hero alone?" Another explosion thundered across the pier. Fire burst near the shipping containers. One of the armored trucks erupted into flames. Richard Clarke staggered from the smoke, bleeding from his shoulder. Savannah's eyes widened. "Dad!" But before she could run to him, a gun clicked behind her head. Everything froze. Gabriel Vale stood directly behind Savannah holding a pistol calmly against her skull. Rain rolled down his silver hair. His expression remained terrifyingly peaceful. Eli stopped instantly. Every muscle in his body tightened. Vale studied him carefully. "There he is," Vale said softly. "The real Eli Turner." Savannah's heartbeat pounded violently. "Let her go," Eli growled. Vale smiled faintly. "You still react emotionally. That was always your weakness. Touch her and I'll kill you." "Oh, I believe you," Vale replied calmly. "But the interesting question is whether you'll survive long enough to try." Savannah could feel the cold barrel against her skin. She forced herself not to panic. Vale leaned closer to her ear. "You know why Eli survived my organization?" Savannah said nothing. "Because he was useful." Eli's expression changed instantly. "Don't." Vale ignored him. "He wasn't just muscle." Vale smiled slightly. "He was my best cleaner." Savannah frowned. "What does that mean?" Eli looked sick. Vale answered for him. "He erased problems." The rain suddenly felt colder. Savannah slowly turned toward Eli. "What is he talking about?" Eli didn't answer immediately, which terrified her. Vale's smile widened. "Tell her." Eli's voice came rough. "Before restaurants. I handled collections." Savannah stared at him. "Collections." The word sounded harmless. Until she remembered Chicago. Until she remembered Gabriel Vale. Until she understood. "You hurt people," she whispered. Eli looked away. "Yes." The dock suddenly felt silent despite the chaos around them. Savannah's chest tightened painfully. "How many?" Eli didn't answer. Vale answered for him instead. "Enough that men still fear his name in certain parts of this city." Savannah felt like the ground disappeared beneath her. The man she loved had once been part of this nightmare. Not trapped near it. Part of it. Vale watched her expression carefully. Cruel amusement danced in his eyes. "You thought you were falling for a chef," he said softly. "But monsters wear aprons too." Something inside Eli snapped. He charged. The gun exploded. Savannah screamed. The bullet tore through Eli's shoulder. But he kept moving. He slammed into Vale violently. Both men crashed across the loading ramp. The pistol skidded away. Vale moved shockingly fast for an older man. He struck Eli directly in the injured shoulder. Eli roared in pain. Then Vale drove a knife from his sleeve toward Eli's ribs. Savannah fired first. The pistol shook in her trembling hands. The bullet ripped through Vale's side. For the first time all night, Gabriel Vale looked surprised. He staggered backward slowly, staring at the blood spreading across his coat. Then he looked at Savannah. And laughed. Actually laughed. "You finally understand Chicago," he said weakly. Then he fell backward into the black water below the pier. Gone. The battle ended 20 minutes later. Sirens flooded the harbor. This time real federal agents arrived. Not local police. Not corrupt detectives. FBI. Homeland Security. Interpol. The dock became a storm of flashing lights and screaming radios. The trafficking victims were rescued from the cargo ship. Arrests spread across the city before sunrise. Politicians vanished overnight. Judges resigned. Banks froze accounts. News stations exploded with reports. Chicago began eating itself alive. And at the center of everything, one name appeared everywhere. Eli Turner. Former associate of Gabriel Vale. Possible witness. Possible suspect. Possible criminal. Savannah sat in the back of an ambulance while paramedics stitched Eli's shoulder nearby. Neither had spoken much since the dock. Because one truth now stood between them like a wall. Eli had once belonged to the darkness. And Savannah didn't know what to do with that. Finally she asked quietly. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Eli stared ahead. "No." "Why?" "Because I wanted one thing in my life untouched by that world." His voice sounded tired. Broken. "You made me forget who I used to be." Savannah looked away. The city skyline glowed across the river while helicopters circled overhead. "You killed people for Vale?" Eli closed his eyes briefly. "Yes." The honesty hurt worse than lies. Savannah swallowed hard. "How do I know that man is really gone?" Eli finally looked at her. "You don't." The answer hung between them painfully. Then federal agents approached. One handed Eli a card. "We'll need a full statement." Eli nodded once. The agent looked toward Savannah. "You too." Then he walked away. Savannah stared at Eli again. "You're cooperating?" "I'm done running." "You could go to prison." "Probably." Her chest tightened. "Eli." He reached for her hand gently. "Everything Vale said was true," he admitted quietly. "But it's not the whole truth." Savannah said nothing. Eli continued. "I never killed innocent people. I got out when Vale started trafficking kids through shipping routes. That's when I disappeared." He looked toward the harbor. "I spent years building restaurants because cooking was the only thing that made me feel human again." Savannah's eyes burned. "You should have told me." "I know. You lied. Yes. But you still came back for me every time. Eli looked at her carefully. Always. The honesty in that one word nearly broke her. Then suddenly, a Homeland Security agent shouted from across the dock. We found another body. Everyone turned. Divers dragged a corpse from the black water near the pier. The body wore Gabriel Vale's coat. But when they rolled the corpse over, it wasn't Gabriel Vale. Savannah's blood froze. Wrong face. Wrong man. The real Gabriel Vale was gone. Richard Clarke appeared beside them, pale and shaken. What does that mean? Savannah whispered. Eli's expression turned grim. It means Vale planned this. Then Richard quietly added. And if he escaped tonight? He looked toward the burning Chicago skyline. This city is about to become a battlefield. 3 weeks later, the Gutter Rose reopened quietly. No grand celebration. No press conference. No interviews. Just warm lights. Jazz music. And people trying to pretend Chicago wasn't unraveling behind the scenes. Savannah stood alone in Eli's office late one night reviewing files connected to the investigation. Dozens of powerful people had vanished since Pier 19. Some dead. Some missing. Some simply erased. And no one had seen Gabriel Vale. Not once. The city felt nervous now. Watching. Waiting. Savannah closed the final folder and rubbed her tired eyes. Then she noticed something strange. One envelope sat alone on Eli's desk. No stamp. No name. Just black paper. Her pulse climbed immediately. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was a photograph. Savannah stopped breathing. The photo showed her. Taken tonight. Standing inside the Gutter Rose. Someone had been watching her again. But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of the photograph, written neatly in silver ink, were 6 words. You were always part of this. Savannah frowned. Then another item slipped from the envelope. A birth certificate. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. Father, Richard Clarke. Mother, Elena Vale. Savannah's blood turned to ice. Vale. Not Clarke. Vale. The office suddenly felt too small. Too quiet. Too dangerous. Then the lights shut off. Darkness swallowed the room. And from somewhere inside the office, a familiar voice spoke softly. Hello, Savannah. Gabriel Vale had come home.